Right, well, welcome everyone to today's sort of webinar. Really appreciate you sort of all joining. So this is a success webinar. So the idea about these success webinars really, these are designed to basically give you real world examples of how our very successful clients are leveraging lead forensics within their sort of go-to-market. Today, we're super lucky to be joined by Darren Burton. He is the Director of Global Business Development, just make sure I get that 100% right, over at SugarCRM. And we're really going to kind of dive into how SugarCRM are using lead forensics within their go-to-market. And like I say, who better to have with us today than Darren, who's running all that sort of business development side of things for Sugar. So really, really pleased for him to be joining. So welcome, Darren, to the webinar today.
Thank you for having me, Paul. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. And I see you're in sort of Chicago today.
Yeah, this is Solihull disguised as Chicago, but it's quite sunny here as well.
That is actually a wallpaper. In fact, that isn't a background that you've sort of set. That is actually a wallpaper.
No. It's just quite handy for when you're having Zoom or Teams calls to have a room that you can go into and have the background already there and not worry about which one you've got in your settings. So yeah, I choose this room carefully.
Wow, it looks very good. Excellent. Well, really appreciate you joining us today. So well, let's start with sort of the obvious. If you can really tell us about SugarCRM then, really, for all of those on the call, to help give them a better idea about what you do as a business and that side. So yeah, over to you.
Sure, thank you. Well, so yeah, with SugarCRM, we started life back in 2004. Some people listening may remember the company from back in those days. So we started off as essentially as an open source CRM project, and what are we now? 21 years on, we're owned by Axel KKR. We operate globally, so we've got 500 to 600 people employed. We're up to over 4,000 customers now, at least a quarter of those in the manufacturing space, and over 1 million users of our software in 120 odd countries. So nice. Yeah, it's really grown enormously. And our sort of core focus is really to help B2B sales teams to work faster, work more effectively. And we do that by offering solutions for both sales automation and, through an acquisition last year, sales intelligence. So that's where we sit now.
Fantastic. Sounds like quite the journey, quite the ride.
It has been, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. So that hopefully gives everyone a good bit of context about the business. So can you tell us a little bit more about your role there at the business, Darren?
Yeah, so I've got this job title of Global Business Development Director, but it's sort of in two parts. I look after business development primarily for the EMEA region across all of our solutions, and the global part is really to do with global best practice, and that includes a lot of the sort of technology that we use in the team. So the BDR team here is very fortunate to have quite a tech stack, obviously lead forensics included within that. So that team is responsible for calling into our target prospects to generate interest in our solutions and to provide qualified opportunities, obviously, to our sales team. But my BDR team is kind of split into three. So we have customer BDRs who are really looking for those cross-sell and upsell opportunities within the base. We have inbound BDRs who are the ones that are reacting to those web leads, marketing leads, etc. And then a growing team of outbound BDRs who are focused primarily on calling into named accounts nowadays. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. And what sort of size is that team becoming now in terms of the ones that are starting to do the outbound?
So in EMEA, there are 3 dedicated outbound BDRs, and 3 to 4 of those in the US, another one in covering the APAC region. So it's a growing team.
Excellent. And are you finding that as an organization, did you start out very much relying on almost the inbound, and as you've started to hone down who you're going after, you've started to think, well, actually, the better way to be able to do that is making it a lot more targeted with outbound BDRs?
Yeah, and I think really it's our focus is changing as a business. I talked about manufacturing there, which is a really big focus for us at the moment. So we're narrowing that lens. That may in turn narrow website visits, for example. So outbound becomes very important to see that growth.
Okay, great. So one of the questions I was going to ask really was around the profile. So you talked a little bit about that there. So it's manufacturers that you're starting to sort of hone in on. Is that the major focus for Sugar?
That's the major one, yeah. So it's around at least a quarter of our existing base. Alongside manufacturing, wholesale and distribution sectors are key to us also. So mid-market companies, typically. It's not only where we have a lot of existing customers, that we can obviously reference, etc., but also where we have the greatest chance of winning, simply because those solutions are ideal for that type and size of company.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And then within that, so if we think about the manufacturing, wholesale, distribution, which is the major focus, who's the type of individual you're targeting in those organizations?
So the ideal persona for us would be typically a sales leader, so whatever you might want to call them nowadays, a CRO, VP of sales, sales director, etc. But we talk to a lot of influencers within that decision-making process, whether that's members of the sales team, but also other members of the C-suite.
Interesting.
So quite a collection.
And with the influencers, because I'm sure a lot of people would be interested, because a lot of times people just go straight for the decision maker. It's going to be, like you say, the CRO or it's the VP sales. How do you tend to sort of work with the influencers? Do you find success from that, almost going in sometimes Definitely. A little bit lower and working your way up?
Definitely, yeah. The way we look at it is, if we get some time on a call with a CRO, for example, or a VP of sales, we've got one shot. So the more insight that we can build in advance of that call, the more insightful the call is for them as well. So there's one thing just referencing some other customers that you've got, but it's another thing to be able to talk knowledgeably about their company, their typical objectives, their current issues, and we can build up a pretty good picture from, sometimes just talking to members of the sales team. We can get an understanding of what CRM they're using, what ERP they're using, because we connect to manufacturers' ERP systems. So it's great to get some insight into the tech piece of that organization. But equally, by talking to influencers, we can get a good understanding of numbers of the sales team, whether they're working remote, on the road or not, whether they might need the mobile version of our product or not. So we can get some real good insight. But well, you run a sales team as well, Paul, so they're quite honest people when it comes to what's going wrong in your business at the moment. They're quite happy to talk about that. So we can get some really good insight before we go and talk to the CRO and talk knowledgeably about their company and their issues.
Okay, perfect. So it sounds like you say it's not just about having the referenceable customers that you can talk about, but by already having spoken to people in the organization, when you do get through to that CRO, the VP sales, you can have a much rounder conversation because you know more about the organization, some of their struggles, some of their challenges, and what they're trying to achieve.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So moving then, so we've got a good understanding about the business, got a good understanding about the industry targeting, got a good understanding about the type of individual you're targeting. So with all of that in mind, how does lead forensics feature within your sort of go-to-market with BDR team? Where does that sort of fit?
Kind of in sort of two strands, I suppose. So we've got the marketing team. So we're using let's call it the lead forensics data to do retargeting. So they're sending sort of targeted LinkedIn ads to those organizations that visit, as an example. And then alongside that, we've got the more of the sales side. So we've set up a lot of trigger alerts within lead forensics to alert both our sales and BDR teams. So that could be visits from those named accounts that I mentioned earlier for the outbound team, visits to particular pages or combinations of pages, etc. And in fact, there's a third strand, I suppose, which is our customer account managers and those customer BDRs that I mentioned, where they're getting alerted to what our customers are looking at. So one particular case will be existing customer using one of our solutions, let's just call it solution A, but they're looking at the product page for solution B. So we set up trigger alerts on that side because that gives us those cross-sell or upsell opportunities to go and talk about. And this is really part of this wider picture, I suppose, of an outbound BDR might have 1,000 accounts or more on that target list. They can't call 1,000 people every day. So all of our tech stack is designed really to narrow that group to, okay, if you're going to make 50 calls today, let's make it the best 50 you can make.
So it's about trying to put the BDR in the right place at the right time.
Exactly.
Yeah. When they're sort of think about it. So it's really interesting what you're talking about there. So rather than just by the sounds of it being used in BDR, in the BDR side of things to help identify existing opportunities or fresh opportunities, it's also being used in other parts of the business with sales about their existing pipeline, maybe their lapse pipeline, your existing customers, maybe lapse customers as well. So it sounds like using it for quite a lot of use cases.
We do, and I think, if we're honest with ourselves, I think we use let's call it the new business side very well. I think we can get a lot better on that customer piece, and that's something that we're putting attention on at the moment. We've had a bit of change in that organization, so we're really just revamping that to get the best out of it. But the new logo side, or the new business side of what we do, is running really smoothly, and we're generating a decent amount of pipeline from lead forensics trigger alerts.
Okay, great. So can you walk us through then more specifically then, if we think about your BDR team? So you talked a little bit about some of the trigger reports that you've set up. So a trigger report comes through, says X organization or multiple types of organizations of interest have been on the website sort of today. How do you tend to sort of follow up? I suppose the first question is, are you doing it almost on a one-by-one trigger basis? So they get a trigger, they jump on it, or is it you do it at the end of the day and they get a list for that day and then they help that schedule their next day's calling? So when it comes to the BDR team, how are you using it?
So all of the above. The main one is the one-by-one, right? So there are certain behavior that some website visitors are going to take. So they're perfectly positioned as, in our sort of ideal customer profile. So they're mid-market manufacturer looking at our website, visiting certain pages, groups of pages, etc. So we built that criteria in that says, okay, when this criteria is met, it's very strong. So we want that to be a real-time alert. So they get that immediately. So let's take you through that scenario. So the steps that we have, there's multiple solutions in this tech stack that get applied to this process. So I'll try and take you through it in the most easy way possible. So real-time alert comes in. BDR receives this, clicks through on the link to go into the portal. Really important, this, right? So we're looking at the portal because we want to understand that behavior. So what are the pages that this visitor has looked at? That might give some clues. So for example, on our website, we have things like blogs. So if somebody's read blogs or read specific case stories or whatever it might be, that can give some insight into where does this person's interest lie. So that's one element of the process. From lead forensics, you've got the website link on the portal page, right? So we're then clicking through onto the website to go and understand, what does this business look like? What do they do? We have a sales intelligence solution that is ideally suited for any business that has a large product portfolio and a lot of repeat business from their customers. So we're looking for things like that to say, okay, does our sales intelligence product fit here in addition? So we're going through that process to understand the business. And once we've visited the website, we have, so we use Zoom Info. So we have a Chrome plugin that literally just slides across the screen when you're on the website and pre-built filters within that to focus in on those sales leaders that we target as a persona. So as soon as we slide that over, we've now got contact names, numbers, email addresses of the sales leadership team. And from Zoom Info in that same screen, I haven't left the screen yet, we can then export that data straight into a cadence in our SalesLoft cadencing product, where we've got the pre-built emails and phone steps and LinkedIn requests and so on. So we literally just tick, tick, tick straight into the cadence. Cadence is activated. The BDR's then on the phone making their first call within the space of 3 or 4 minutes. So our target is 5 minutes on those real-time alerts.
Perfect. Okay. So we think about the real-time alerts then. So you set up your triggers. Really, as you said, it's a manufacturer, mid-market, been on the site, looked at certain pages of interest. That triggers straight to the BDR. They pick that up, click through to the portal, look at the behaviors, what have they been looking at, help them get a better idea about what they might be interested in. Then look at the organization itself. Do they look like a type of organization that you really think are a sweet spot fit for you? Identify the contacts, push that into your cadence system in SugarCRM, and then it begins.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of products, but they all serve their purpose along the way. And I think that's the key to it is you're creating a process that says, okay, we want to focus very quickly on the speed at which we contact somebody showing interest before they go and visit other competitive websites, and to take the BDR through the steps of, look, before you call in, you need to understand this business, and we've created a pre-built cadence for you. So we're building, one of the things that we're doing within SalesLoft is building out not just like a manufacturing cadence, but we're starting to even break that down into the subsectors. So, I'm talking to a plastics manufacturer, so we can put them into a plastic manufacturer cadence.
Okay, got it.
So very specific.
So the data then passes to Sugar and then passes into SalesLoft, does it? Or does it pass into SalesLoft, and once it's qualified, it passes into Sugar?
So this is where some of the integration lies. So as soon as we export from ZoomInfo those contacts into the SalesLoft product, SalesLoft creates a lead for us in our CRM, which is obviously Sugar.
Yeah.
So it creates the lead straight into Sugar, and connects the two. So all the activity that we're doing in SalesLoft is transferring across to the CRM.
Great. Okay. Right. So a number of people on the call might not necessarily be 100% up to speed with cadencing technology. Could you just give them a high level understanding about what a SalesLoft does? And because they might be thinking, well, you've got SugarCRM. Why do you need something like SalesLoft? Can you walk them through sort of the difference between the two solutions and how they kind of work very closely together?
Of course, yeah. So a cadencing tool, they all have their own unique names. So SalesLoft calls it cadencing. Outreach, which is one of their major rivals, calls it sequencing. But the idea of this is if I passed a contact to a BDR or a sales rep, there is a lot of evidence to show that those types of people will get on and try and phone that individual, but then they'll let it go. All right. So, or they might call back in a few weeks' time, etc. So people in senior decision-making positions are busy. Not picking up your phone call or not replying to your email is not necessarily them saying, I'm not interested. So on average, it can take, the stats that you can read on this are everywhere, by the way, and they range, but 13, 16 touch points before somebody will respond to you if it's a cold outreach is quite typical, right? So if we're on one hand saying go and phone this person, but then not giving them the tools to ensure that the right number of steps is taken, then you're heading potentially for a failed outcome. So the cadencing and sequencing tools essentially allow you to put together a series of steps. So think phone, email, LinkedIn, etc., and to apply these within a tool that says, right, on day one, I'm going to do this. On day two, I'm going to do this. On day three, I'm going to do this. And you build out a series of steps. It could be 7 calls and 5 emails or whatever. And there's loads and loads of information online about recommended cadences and sequences. But by adding that in and assigning these tasks essentially to a particular user and all the analytics that go around it can really benefit you as a business, because you're going to ensure that you're doing the right number of outreaches to each person. The other benefit is on the email side, which is you can pre-write the email. So if I get to an email step in a cadence, it's already populating it with hi Paul, and giving me all the text that I want to get across to that particular type of persona in that industry. But I can still choose to have the ability to edit it when I get to that step to add in some personalization. So last bit on this is that we the thing that we're working on at the moment is well, we call it ring bing ding. So the idea of this is 3 steps within 90 seconds of one another. So it's typically a call, leave a voice with a voicemail left, email, and LinkedIn in-mail, for example. So the idea of this is they get 3 alerts coming through on their phone, hence the ring bing ding, from the voicemail being left, the email arriving, the LinkedIn in-mail arriving. And it's something that we refer to in the business development world as pattern interrupt. So this is about grabbing somebody's attention straight away and them knowing that we're trying to reach them. What we're seeing, we actually do a similar thing on day 2. So we're kind of doing around 6 to 7 steps within 2 days. So to some people that will sound aggressive, but actually the long and short of it is that we're getting much more positive outcome from those early steps that we're taking to try and reach somebody than we were ever doing before. So it's about just interrupt. They're not saying they're not interested. They're just busy people. But if you hit them a little bit harder in the early days, you're much more likely to get a response. And once they're on the phone with you, they're fine.
So the interesting thing is when you think about a cadence system, it's a bit like a paint by colours, really, isn't it, for the BDR team, which is rather than them having to think about, okay, I've just got this opportunity through, okay, exactly as you're saying, okay, I'll give it a call today. Okay, I've got other things to do. Oh, I'll get around to that again next week. And there's no real structure to it. The cadence platform gives them real structure to what they're sort of doing.
Completely. And you've got control a lot with a lot of these cadence tools. You can choose which users can edit and which ones can't, and so on. So, if you want to, if you've got a BDR, for example, that you want to run through a particular series of steps and you just want them to stick to that, then you can have that and the script can pop up in front of them and so on. So it depends on what you're selling, I suppose, to some extent. We give our BDRs a lot of freedom within that because we want them to really add personalization to each of the email steps. But sometimes on the customer side, we're using cadencing tools as is. So we pre-build a series of 4 emails, for example, and we automate them, and we're literally just uploading a list of people into that, and the emails all fire off. So you can use it in a multitude of ways, but everything that we do in SalesLoft, the important thing is that it's coming through to our CRM. It's coming through to the CRM, so we've got a complete log of all the activity history. But those sorts of tools are designed to do exactly this, which is that that cold outreach.
And if we think about it, so in your role, and you and I have spoken obviously before this call, but you're a real expert in that whole business development sort of space. And you talk about email, LinkedIn, calls, voicemails. Is your view and with all the experience that you had, if for instance you had a BDR team that just used email and say LinkedIn but no calls, or for instance a team that just did calls but no emails, no LinkedIn, have you found that actually the way to get the best results is this combined approach of the phone, voicemail, LinkedIn, sort of email? What's your experience there, having done this for a long time and a lot of experience?
So I've got this really ugly slide that I sometimes present to our sales and business development teams. And so think of a grid, and it's got lots of colors on there, and it's just to highlight this exact issue. So down one side of the grid, you've got all the different personas that you might target, and across the top, you've got all of the different ways of communicating with them. So everything from WhatsApp to responding to an SMS to email. And the idea is we fill out this grid with green is that person is very likely to respond to that type of outreach. Red means they definitely won't, and amber just depends on whether you catch them at the right time. And the idea is here, this when people are looking at this grid and I'm explaining this, they get it, because I'm saying, okay, imagine if you only went after the head of IT, right? And they might only have a green box on email, so responding to email. So if you just phone that individual, you'll never get through, right? So the whole idea of going across multiple personas and across multiple different styles of outreach, you're maximizing your chances of getting a conversation happening with that organization, right? If you stick to one persona and one method of contacting them, then you're just hoping. Whereas doing it if you go broad, if you go broad within the personas, and you go broad within the types of outreach, then you're maximizing that chance of having that conversation, and that's really important if you're really focused in on industry sectors like we are.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's really interesting, because when we speak to some of our customers, they'll take the lead forensic sort of data and they say, oh yeah, we're just going to sort of send them emails, and we always sort of say, look, by all means send them emails, but you have to actually incorporate the phone and link. It's not one or other. It's exactly as you say. It's a great way of explaining it, as you have done there, which is if you only take one approach, email or LinkedIn or phone,
yeah.
But the people that are only going to respond maybe through LinkedIn, if you only do phone calls, isn't going to work. But if only people that respond through phones and you only do emails, well, again, but if you do the cross section, you've got the best chance of getting to them as well.
Yeah, you're removing some of the luck and relying a little bit more on just logic, and it certainly works for us. The cadencing tool enforces that breadth of different media, and the Zoom info piece brings in those that variety of contacts. And but I would certainly also add to that the everything that we do, whether it's email, text message, whatever it might be, it's all of those emails and messages on LinkedIn, for example, are pushing towards one outcome, which is for us to be able to spend some time on a telephone conversation with them. So it's important to remember that as well, that be consistent in if you start to use email and you start to use LinkedIn, all of those messages should aim to try and look, can we jump on a call for 10 minutes to discuss, right? Because nothing will happen unless you speak to them. So we don't use our emails, for example, to guide them to other parts of the website or to send them attachments and things like that. We just keep it simple, very brief messages. Look, can we jump on a call for 10 minutes to discuss? So it's for us, it might be a bit different because we're aiming for sales leaders, so we're trying to talk their language as well. But that's key to us, is to let's jump on a call and let's have a conversation, because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, excellent. All right, really, really helpful. So a couple of last real sort of questions for you.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about at the start, really, about real-time trigger alerts. So you're getting those, they're coming through to the BDRs. You've talked us through really nicely about how they pick them up and what they do with them. Fantastic. Is there other sets of data where it might not be real time, but you're still doing something with that data within the BDR team?
Yeah. So the real time alerts are really based on the behavior. And so look, somebody's come on, for example, and they're mid-market manufacturer, they're checking out the product pages, they're checking out pricing. So those are the real time alerts, so that we can jump on those very quickly. But we still take visits from the right industry, so a little bit wider, a little bit looser on the criteria, shall we say, and deliver that as a daily report to BDRs. Named accounts are done as trigger alerts in real time, regardless of the behavior. So sometimes salespeople will get those, but decide there's nothing too urgent to react to right now, so they'll react later. So daily reports to BDRs alongside the real time alerts, and then there's weekly reports that go to our marketing team, so they can collect that data and push that into things like LinkedIn ads. So we're taking that visit again. We're talking about somebody who's come onto your website and has not made themselves known, right? They've not filled out a form. So there's a strong indication that they're interested, but they might be in the very early stages. And we know what it's like nowadays. Everybody wants to, self-educate and self-research first. And so what we're trying, and we don't know who within that organization has done that. So again, it's the breadth thing. So we're taking from a marketing perspective, we're taking that account and saying, okay, the account is showing what we could class as first party intent. They've been to our website, they're showing some intent of interest. But we're going to go wide within the organization anyway to promote ourselves across that leadership team through targeted LinkedIn ads. And that seems to be working really well.
Great. Okay. So if I had to summarize that, so what we've got is we've got the real-time triggers going on, and which they're broken into two. So one would be, this isn't necessarily in our named account, but it's manufacturing, it's the right size, looks good. So we're going to trigger those immediately. We've then got a list uploaded, integrated. So like you say, named account. So if we know of that organization already, it's a named account and it visits, whoever that account is assigned to, we're going to alert them about it. We're going to do that in real time. We've then got the next group, which is they're not necessary. It's a bit looser, but still interesting. And that then comes through, say, on a daily report so that they can then work through and work out what they'll sort of schedule. And then you then have more like a weekly report, which goes to marketing. They can take that data and then feed that into their sort of, as you say, their LinkedIn advertising campaigns and other research that they might be sort of doing about who's visiting the website and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. And sort of final real question for you would be, you've been using Lead Forensics for a while now. What would you say would be some of the learnings in terms of the do's and the don'ts, where you've gone, okay, right, learned this is a really good thing to do, and we've learned maybe this isn't such a good thing to do?
Yeah, so I think I've been using Lead Forensics for a very long time, actually, because I used it at a previous company as well. So I think I'm now it might be 16 years or something like that. So yeah, been very long time.
User.
Well, yeah. So our account manager at Lead Forensics sometimes comes to me for help. So I think across all of that time, we've kind of used or reacted to the Lead Forensics data in a multitude of different ways over the years. And the one thing I can definitely say works the best is act fast, right? We jump on these immediately, and the first stage of that cadence, if you like, is just to make a phone call. And we're looking at the visit to maybe give us some indication. Sometimes depends on individual websites, I suppose, but if you've got a website structure that maybe can give you some idea as to who that or at least which department that person might be sat in, that and go to the leader of that. But if you think from a CRM perspective, if you've got somebody visiting SugarCRM.com, there's an interest in CRM of some description, right? So by targeting, as we do, a sales leader or marketing leader, for example, if there is a CRM project beginning there or discontent with the existing CRM system, for example, going wide across that business, you're gonna find somebody who's going to say, yeah, look, this is a problem for us at the moment. And all you're looking to do is open that door as quickly as possible and start conversation. Yes, they want to self-educate, self-research, but at the end of the day, if that's a business that has an issue that you can help resolve, there's going to be somebody willing to open up and talk to you about that. And that's really our core focus, is push that first call out within 5 minutes.
Yeah. So timing is everything, really. Don't sort of hang around.
Yeah. And I was on with Chris, our account manager, earlier, working out the return on investment, by the way. So we're talking about 20x
okay, fantastic.
when we look at pipeline to the cost. So this is and that's simply because we're acting quickly. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, that has been what I would certainly call a masterclass in terms of how to use Lead Forensics. I'm sure people will find that this call incredibly useful, and we'll sort of listen back to it multiple times. Well, I'm sure they will. And it's been really interesting because exactly as you sort of talked about there, Lead Forensics is a piece of the technology, but there's also other parts within the tech stack. And really interestingly, it's about that cadencing, because I fully agree with you, which is, okay, we've identified that opportunity. It looks like a good opportunity, but it's then how you execute on that opportunity, and don't just sort of do one call I can't get through. Okay, on to the next, and I'll come back to that maybe in a week. It's as you said, I think you said you make 6 or 7 touches to that prospect in the first 2 days. So really important.
Yeah, 7 touches in the first 2 days, and we we essentially keep going until we get a definite no. If it's on our key account list, if you like. So, but we're doing that across a multitude of people. So it's that's what my team is there to do. So we're fortunate that we've got the team. We're fortunate that we've got all the technology, a really good CRM system, obviously, the center of all of that. But yeah, I think the key is whatever you're doing, just have a process that if you can have the tech that supports that and enforces it, then like you said, lead forensics is just a part of that jigsaw, but it's a very critical part. But you could say the same about all the rest of it. It's just building out a process and making sure that it can be followed simply. And we've happened to do ours where, once you click on that link, you're never really leaving that screen.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just, you're just folding over the layers of the technology piece but it's all following through in a very simple process. So simplify the process as much as possible, but make sure you've got something there to support that, because that will enforce that it happens. And if you enforce that it happens, you're going to see the results.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent. Well, Darren, thank you very, very much. Really, really appreciate all your time today. And we look forward to sort of our continued work with you, continue the 16 years. And
I'm more counting.
Exactly. Well, lovely to see you. Thank you, Darren.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers.
Much appreciated.